Good Wednesday afternoon. Jerry Miller, welcome to the I Love CVille show. We're live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille network. Good program lined up for you. Alex Urpí, our guest. This gentleman, fantastic guy, president of Forward Adelante, a publication and magazine that champions the business community and the Latin American community here in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. He's a strategist, a financial advisor, someone who has vision, someone who's organized, someone who can explain difficult content in approachable terminology. Alex is going to join us in about 13 minutes on this program. I enjoy catching up with him because I can relate to him, and I feel like he's relatable from a viewing public standpoint as well, and he's honest. He's real. Okay, he's just a real guy in Charlottesville, just like you and I, that is trying to survive and take 2 steps forward. We might have 1 step back, and on some days we might have 3 steps backwards, but in general we're going 2 steps forward because that's what we do. We're an advertising agency at I Love CVille and VMV Brands. We love working with businesses and small business owners from New Providence, New Jersey, where we have a satellite office, all the way to Asheville, North Carolina. The majority of our clients in Charlottesville, Central Virginia, and the Commonwealth. 2 of our favorites, intrastate pest and service companies. The Wells family has run this business for so long and so successfully and so committed to the community, intrastate pest and service companies. And Scott Wagner, good friend of the show, committed through chiropractic care, sports medicine, and physical therapy to changing people's lives at Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. Judah Wickhauer, director, my friend, you ready to run headlines today on Wednesday, April 29th? You ready to rock and roll? All right, first headline, my friend, let's go to the UVA hospital. This broke yesterday afternoon, and I did a triple take when I saw the headline. I posted it on my Facebook page where I would encourage you to follow. We originate a lot of the topics for this show on our platforms before they come on the show. I encourage you to offer your perspective on this story now on the live stream. Keep the headline up. $3 million a day UVA health system is losing. $85 million a month, a startling number. One of the executives went on record, Dr. K. Craig Kent, the executive vice president for health affairs. He basically said, we're quickly running out of money. We are quickly running out of money. And I would encourage you to read the article. Furloughs, pay cuts, especially to the executive staff on the horizon and actually being executed as we speak. The thing that's startling about this is this is one of the largest employers in Charlottesville, Virginia. The hospital is in an arm of the machine that is the University of Virginia, as we all know. And when you see one of the machine's arms, and the machine has a lot of arms. The machine has a hospital for an arm. The machine has a law school for an arm, Darden School for an arm, an undergraduate school for an arm. The machine has various body parts that make it the machine. When you see the machine have one of its key appendages suffer $85 million a month losses, you start to get concerned about the machine itself, especially when we know UVA is in peril from its business model and whether students are going to learn and experience and gain a degree in person or in a virtual setting. This is a troubling headline. It's a troubling headline. And I don't care anybody that's watching, it's something we should follow closely, and it's most certainly news. The next headline has a bit of hope after a sobering one from the UVA hospital. And the next one is from VCU. VCU's president is committing to having students in the fall in Richmond, Virginia at Virginia Commonwealth University. Worth repeating, the president of Virginia Commonwealth University is committed to having students on campus this fall in Richmond, Virginia. Very interesting statistic. He also, the president of VCU, talks about the difficulties of VCU's health system, like hospitals across the country right now as they're managing COVID-19. They're all experiencing the same struggles. We cannot do elective surgeries, the surgeries we choose to get done, the surgeries that we as a human being choose to get done, or surgeries that are non-life essential where the margin is much better. Those aren't happening, and as a result, the system is falling apart. The system is falling apart right now from a hospital standpoint. The healthcare system is in peril. Watch the stories closely. The hope that I'm providing, though, is VCU and its president committed to returning its students to grounds this fall. I'll follow that one closely. Next headline, my friend Judah Wickhauer, our director. Let's get to drive-in movie theaters opening in May. This is an interesting one. You might say, Jerry, this is trivial compared to hospitals hemorrhaging $85 million. Yes, I suppose it is. But 50 days in to this quarantining life of isolation and being with our immediate family only, and running out of options, especially those parents of young children and parents of children in general that are living in the house, where you often have to occupy and create attention-seeking opportunities for your children to maintain sanity at home. This is an opportunity for you. May 1st, Judah Wickhauer, it says, is that right? Drive-in movie theater reopens May 1st in Virginia. An idea for you and your family. An idea for you and your family to go do. Drive-in movie theaters, May 1st, according to the governor, able to reopen in Virginia. I think Ralph, our governor, is under, and I put this in a comment section of a post on my Facebook page this morning. It was a back and forth banter of a doctor in Charlottesville that I respect a lot, and Dr. Rachel Cookta. And we were on different sides of the fence. Rachel and I have known her for 20 years. Is that right, Rachel? I'd say that's right. Yeah, 20 years. The doctor and I were on different sides of the fence. Her, of course, with her profession, and I respect it tremendously, focusing on social distancing and isolation and making sure we flatten this curve enough so it never rises again. And I respect it. And I respect it. I respect it. Me on the fence of we got to be mindful of the 26 million plus Americans who are unemployed. 200 million Americans, worth repeating, 200 million Americans who are either unemployed, furloughed, had a pay cut, or undervalued. 200 plus a million Americans estimated there. 500,000 Virginians unemployed. 500,000 Virginians. So we're on different sides of the fence. You know I'm a champion of the economy and small business. I also respect the medical minds, like Dr. Rebecca Downey, who said we have to isolate. It's such a fine line. But I've said on this program, as Georgia, as South Carolina, as Tennessee, as Florida, as Minnesota, as Missouri, as Montana, as these states reopen and have potential success, Ralph is going to feel pressure and he's going to start loosening the reins. Mark that down. Mark that down. Next question is the rental housing market headline. Let's say students don't come back to grounds. And Judah, give me a thumbs up when that's on screen. Thank you, sir. Let's say students, Judah Wickhauer, do not come back to grounds for the fall semester. What happens to the apartments, like the Oxford Hills, the 10th Street apartments, or 14th Street apartments? What happens to MSC? The MSCs of the world. The massive population of apartments and houses that are allocated to 20,000 some students in Charlottesville. What happens to them if students are not on grounds for the fall semester? Do the landlords and the local corporations and much of the Charlottesville housing stock that's allocated to University of Virginia students, much of that stock is controlled by companies in Charlottesville and Central Virginia, corporations, big-time corporations. What is going to happen to this? I think in a short term, the corporations are going to try to see the forest through the trees and initially will say, all right, we will give you potentially a break for fall rent, but I don't think they're going to do that for spring rent. And the question I have that's worth asking Charlottesville, Virginia, is this housing stock that's allocated to University of Virginia students that's oftentimes in the neighborhood of, depending on where you're at, $800 to $2,200 a month, some of the affordable housing stock in our community, is this going to be potentially be repurposed into Charlottesville's world, into Charlottesville's ecosystem as potentially extra housing stock that can create more supply for an already strong demand, and with more supply potentially driving down the cost of housing in Charlottesville? Follow the trend. We try to stay ahead of it. If for some reason the students do not return to grounds, you're going to have a hell of a lot more housing stock in Charlottesville's rental market. And with extra supply comes a decrease in pricing. and perhaps the affordability of Charlottesville becomes more likely. Just a thought. Just a thought. I got comments coming in. I'm going to get to those comments in a matter of moments. I want to go to the next headline. This is such an unfortunate story, and it's an unfortunate story that's becoming worse. I told you we talked earlier in the show, and get to the Cavalier Daily article. We talked earlier in the week on Monday about the University of Virginia. And do you have the logos, Judah, the new brand identity for UVA that you could put on screen? Okay, all right. So we talked on Monday about the new brand identity at the University of Virginia and how Cavman is bowing his head and how frustrating it was to see the brand identity and the logo at UVA have Cavman bowing his head in fear or uncertainty, or it just doesn't have the swagger or the panache that we expect with Cavman. Well, now there's a story out in the Cavalier Daily. This story came out yesterday after our show about the elements in the new brand identity. They use this, is the word serpentine, Judah? Serpentine. Thank you, Judah. Serpentine walls were used in the brand identity. The serpentine walls were from the lawn at the University of Virginia. Well, Cavalier Daily's released a story that those serpentine walls on the lawn at the University of Virginia, the whole reason those lawns were into play were originally built at UVA to hide enslaved laborers from the university community and muffle the sounds of their daily life. So now you got a population of folks at UVA, and probably deservingly so, because the people in Nike and the university didn't do their homework when adding these walls to the brand identity, and these walls evidently have a history of slavery around the grounds of Charlottesville. Cavalier Daily's got a front page story of it. It's getting traction already. This just shows you building and designing and creating, and this is literally what I do every day with our team as the owner of an advertising agency. Designing and developing a brand identity is hard. It is not something that's done lightly. And here you have Nike in conjunction with UVA creating a brand identity that has the population of the university so up at arms. A portion of that population is upset that Cavman has his head bowed down in fear because of uncertainty and doesn't have the swagger that we've come known to Cavman. And the other portion of the population says the walls that are in the brand identity are a reflection of slavery times on grounds in Charlottesville. Nike and UVA, you messed this one up. You screwed this one up pretty badly, dude. Next headline, Alex Urpí joining us. Daily Progress is the Daily Progress in Jeopardy. This from the CVille Weekly. The Daily Progress has a union for its reporters. I used to work for the Daily Progress. I worked there for 5 years. My first job out of UVA was at the Daily Progress as a staff writer. And the Daily Progress recently, in the last 6 months, created a union to fight the demise and collapse of the newspaper industry. Recently, and by recently I mean today or yesterday, the CVille Weekly reported a story about how the Daily Progress and its staff writers, its reporters, its union, were negotiating with the new owner of the company, Lee Enterprise. And Lee Enterprises is this behemoth in newspapers that owns a bunch of them and tries to strip the newspaper down for parts and hopes that by consolidated back-end infrastructure and by stripping the models down for parts, you can hopefully make some money in a dying industry. Well, guess what? The new owner of the Charlottesville Daily Progress is asking its staff to take a 2-week unpaid furlough in the next couple months. A 2-week unpaid furlough in the next couple months. That's like your boss goes to you, hey man, you're going to take some time off. You ain't getting paid. Come back in 2 weeks. That's not a good feeling. I'm nervous about the future of local journalism big time. The newspaper industry was already screwed before COVID. And now COVID is taking an industry that was on the brink of collapse and taking a sledgehammer and trying to pound the last breaths of life out of it. Watch what happens with the newspaper. The Progress of late, the Progress has an interesting reputation, but the Progress of late has stepped up its game. It's stepped up its game. Okay, it stepped up its game. Quickly, before we get to Alex, if you're watching, we're going to go to you in about 30 seconds, my friend. Not a good statistic. Let's go nationwide, take a macro outlook. March 2020, not a good month for real estate across the country. 21% home sales down in March. 21%. Realtors claim prices will hold up in April. Of course they do. They have to do that. But 21% in March, home sales are down. That's a nationwide statistic. That's not Charlottesville or Central Virginia. Charlottesville, Central Virginia, a bit more buffered or immune to it. But that's a nationwide statistic. And I just moved from Redfields on the south side of town to the east side of town to the Keswick area. Bought a home, got a good deal. If you're on the cusp of buying a home, do it. You have tremendous opportunity right now to negotiate. It's a buyer's market, and you could potentially get 15 to 20% off asking price if you find the right house. Here's a good time to buy a home. Long term, buying a home in Charlottesville and Central Virginia is a good idea. Buy one now. Buyer's market. 60 days ago, it was a seller's market, and I know firsthand because I sold my home in Redfields. 60 days ago, you had people chomping at the bit and breaking your door down because inventory levels in Charlottesville and Central Virginia were so low. They were fighting with crowbars and baseball bats at your door, giving you full price offers, sans home sale contingencies. Today, not the case. 60 days makes a huge difference. The last headline before we welcome Alex to the program. Judah, you have that one on screen for us? You do? Hair Cuttery, bankruptcy. G-bus. Hair Cuttery. Who hasn't gotten a bad haircut at Hair Cuttery? I couldn't tell you how many bad haircuts I've gotten at Hair Cuttery. Hair Cuttery files for bankruptcy. They're withholding pay of more than $3 million in wages and bonuses and benefits. Worth repeating, Hair Cuttery is withholding more than $3 million in wages, bonuses, and benefits from its employees from the week prior to the coronavirus pandemic hitting the country. Good night. What a terrible company. Your employees are in a terrible financial situation, and we're going to withhold your money and your benefits because we can't make our corporate overhead, and then we're going to file for bankruptcy. So long, Hair Cuttery. That's going to open up a lot of Class A office space for rent. Isn't there a Hair Cuttery in Barracks Road? Is there a Hair Cuttery in Barracks Road, Judah? Yeah, exactly, right across from Five Guys. I think, is there a Hair Cuttery in Fifth Street safe? That's going to open up a hell of a lot of Class A office space. Hair Cuttery closing in a lot of shopping centers. Bankruptcy, Hair Cuttery. Don't play your employees. That is, I'm going to call Alex now. You ready for this, Judah? All right. Alex, if you're watching, we're Skyping you now. It's ringing as we speak. Alex Urpí's good people. Presidente of Forward Adelante, great gentleman, ambassador of Charlottesville, Alex is, and a champion of the small business community, Alex is. The man and his family love Charlottesville and Central Virginia and supporting small business owners across the area and families across the area. Their values align with what we're trying to do with the I Love CVille show. Judah, do we have your approval to bring them on? We do. Alex, you're live on the show. Before we bring you here, who do we have sitting next to you?
So I'm here with my father, Javier. He also is the co-owner of Emergent Financial Services, and he's also the treasurer of Forward Adelante. So he works with me both on the business front, but also on the nonprofit, trying to just help Latino businesses grow.
I love it. Well, welcome, Javier. Thank you for joining us. You're live in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, how's the mental health? How's everything now? I mean, it's a crazy time out there.
It is certainly crazy. I mean, we are hanging in there ourselves. You know, it's not being able to do much. Fortunately, we're able, since we're all a family office, we're able to take that space and really just be able to come to work and do what we have to do for our clients. And we can't see them in person, which is always a challenge, especially in our industry. Trust is such a big factor for what we do. So not being able to see people in person is a difficult thing. We keep in contact in the other means that are available to us to do it. But other than that, we take things in perspective in that we're so much better off than so many others because of the nature of the work that we are in.
Well said. Well said. Javier, What's the temperature on the street? How's the business community? I'm a small business owner. You're a small business owner. We're uncertain. The thing that's most frustrating for me as a businessman is it's difficult to project a burn rate or when this could be potentially be done. It's much easier as businessmen to say, all right, this is going to go 90 days. Let's manage cash for 90 days, and then perhaps we can jumpstart things and get some new business and incremental revenue coming in. We just don't know, Javier. What's the temperature you're hearing?
And that's the key point. There's certainly a certain number, and by the way, thank you so much for having us, and it's nice to meet you.
Virtually.
But And that's the key. And the most important thing is that it's the small businesses typically that have the biggest challenges. The large businesses have ways to continue to work, to continue to do whatever or provide the services or do what they have to do. It's the small businesses that have the biggest challenge. One, because they don't have the funds to say, yes, I'm good for 90 days or 60 days. And as you said, we don't know. Is it 60 days, 40 days, 30 days? And I think that's what the biggest challenge is. So we need to really focus on, what's the best way, in my opinion, to get this economy back going, because there's been a lot of opportunities for businesses to get grants, to get loans, etc. But it doesn't seem to be, those loans and grants don't seem to be focused properly, in my opinion, in such a way that the small businesses, the one that need them the most, are getting them. So really the only solution that these businesses have is to get back to work.
Well said. In fact, you have a businesswoman in Charlottesville. Her name is Patty Zeller watching. She owns Animal Connection at McIntyre Plaza. She says, I agree with you guys. What's frustrating for me as a businesswoman is getting an answer regarding the PPP loan. I've heard nothing. It's just absolutely crickets out there. Here's a good question. It's a twofold question to both of you. First part, what's the advice you're giving to your clients, your families, the businesses about the PPP program and getting capital? And then how was the Latin community, how did they respond to the PPP program? Because I thought when it was launched initially, it was done so quickly that there was so much uncertainty. We see in retrospect that a lot of publicly traded, almost $250 million went to publicly traded companies. I'm seeing Ruth Chris, Shake Shack, and the Los Angeles Lakers get money and have to return it back because of fear ramifications. I mean, so throw that topic to you, the PPP program.
So it's definitely, particular with the Latino community, and that's really, we've been reaching out both through clients, but also through Latinos that we know. To be honest, I know of 0 Latinos who were able to access PPP.
Okay, so that's worth repeating. You know of 0 Latino business owners that were able to access PPP in Charlottesville, Central Virginia.
Yep, that I know personally.
That's unfortunate.
And the most frustrating, I'm just going to tell you a story. I won't say who it was, but I know an individual. We got him in to apply to go for PPP and for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce grant. And for the the EIDL loan, economic injury disaster relief. All 3 denied. PPP, his banker told him that because he was a sole proprietor, that he was not eligible. And so the first thing I want to get in people's minds is that is incorrect. If you were going to the bank and they're telling you you don't have any employees that are not owners, you're not eligible for this, for PPP, that's simply inaccurate information. You are eligible. And you have to be able to push back, which is a challenge for a lot of Latino business owners, because if you're not completely informed going in there,
Alex, it's a challenge for all. It's a challenge for all of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've been really encouraging people know that information to be able to say, yes, I am eligible. It doesn't mean you're going to get the funding, but at least don't, because he didn't realize that he was being told wrong information and never finished the application process. And so that's something we're really pushing out there, that if you're a sole proprietor, if you're a 1099 independent contractor, you are eligible. Doesn't mean you're going to get the funding, but at least go through the process and push back and make sure that they fill out your application.
We got some comments coming in on this topic. So Johnny from Guadalajara is watching. He says, we are one of those that tried to get it and we did not get it. Andre Xavier, however, he's the owner of CVille Hop-On Tours. Brazilian. He says, Jerry, I'm a minority business owner, and I did receive the PPP, but nothing on the EIDL.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're going to see stories like that. But the most important thing, and for everybody that is watching or is available, PPP reopened again on Monday,
Right.
and they are taking applications again. If you already applied, the application is good. This is what we understand. But if you haven't, go back to your bank and tell them, no, I understand that I can apply. It doesn't matter that I'm a sole proprietor, that I'm a family owner. It doesn't matter. You have to apply. And the most important thing is there are tons of grants that have come about. Charlottesville had some, like Alex said, the chamber had some. So you have to stay on top of these, and you have to apply. Some are much easier to apply. The application is very easy, and some, yes, they take a little more challenges. And there was one where you needed.
Yeah.
It was
Just
video.
as an example of that, like the Virginia 30-day fund, still open. The challenge there is that part of the requirements, it's a very simple application online, virginia30dayfund.com, business license, W-9. The challenge there is you have to make a video of yourself and what you're going to do with the funding.
I love that.
It has a little asterisk. You have to upload
Yeah.
that. So it's good for them because it's how they sort of figure out.
How they're vetting.
Exactly. It's their way of vetting. But for business owners who are going to go into that, you have to be prepared. Don't just go to the website and say, let me fill this out. You need to make that in advance so that you can upload it when you go there to apply for the funding.
Let me throw this to you. The struggle with this situation as a business owner is various businesses have varying degrees of access to capital markets. Okay? When this stuff started coming down the pipe, I immediately went to my banker before PPP, which I did not get, or the other one, which I did not get. I immediately went to my banker, and I have two businesses, as you know, the advertising agency and the real estate portfolio. I immediately tweaked the lines of credit that I had that were not used, but I just wanted to make sure that I had more burn rate with the lines of credit if I needed them. So what I'm saying is I had access to capital because my P&L and my balance sheets were in order and prepared and ready to go. The question I have for you is, can you compare and contrast access to capital markets and having documents like this in order with some of the businesses that you're working alongside potentially in the Latin community, Latino community? The frustrating thing here is the bigger or more established business, they have an edge here because they can get all this documentation in order and get it funneled quickly to the front of the line before the money runs out.
So, Jerry, one of the things that we try very hard when we speak to small businesses, and in particular the Latino community, because they don't have the wherewithal and they don't have the knowledge that a lot of people that grow up in this country, they go to school, they understand this. They don't know how the system works. All they know is how to go out and work, make a living, make a buck. And we try very hard to explain to them that there are other facilities for them to help them. And as you said, the facilities aren't there necessarily for today. They're there just in case something happens tomorrow. And it is our job and our task, and what we try to do very, very hard, is to work with them and say, come talk to us so we can help you develop a plan so that you know that tomorrow, if something comes up, right, there is a sense that you have some funds, you have a way that the bank knows, you might have, as you said, you might have a credit line that you can tap into. So that's the most important thing. And again, it is a challenge, and I understand that most small business owners sometimes they just don't have the time. They're working 24 hours a day basically to keep alive. Right? But it's important.
Javier, what do you think this looks like when we're on the other side of this? What is local business? What is local business, for lack of better phrase, on West Main Street in Charlottesville, in Cherry Avenue in Fifeville, in Southwood and Fifth Street Extended, Zion's Crossroads, Fluvanna? What does local business look like again?
It's going to be a challenge for them, but I mean, the important thing here is we need to get going the sooner the better. And I recognize the fact that this has been a pandemic. This particular virus is very contagious, so it has been a challenge to the medical community. But if you begin to look at the numbers, and I'm so happy, I was listening to you yesterday, I'm so happy that the governor's thinking about, how do we get Virginia back working, right? And I know certainly all the other states around Virginia are doing it, so he has some pressure. But think about Albemarle. Albemarle County had, I think, about 81 cases, 16 hospitalized, and this was, I think, as of yesterday, and 4 deaths. If you look at all of Virginia, the focus really where it's hit the most is Northern Virginia, Fairfax, London, Loudoun. and in some areas in Richmond. So those are the areas where, but everywhere else it's been really small. So we have to be smart about saying the small businesses who really, the community is the one that goes to these small businesses. We have to reopen for them, because if we don't, you're right. I mean, some of these businesses, if you go on another 30 days and they can't open, they're done. I mean, we, as Alex was saying, we know families that put all their money into opening a business. And if they don't have any funds available, if they don't get any help, they're finished. I mean, there's no other way. Nobody's going to lend them any money because they already had loans outstanding. So it's a critical time. It really is, for all these small businesses that need to get back to work. And if we don't, I think it's going to be a very long time before some of these can get back.
That was beautiful. I agree 1,000%. 26 million plus Americans unemployed, 500,000 Virginians unemployed, roughly 200 million Americans unemployed, furloughed, or undervalued, underpaid, had their pay cut. Curtis Shaver, Peloton Station, welcome to the program. Lisa Herndon has this message. I'm enjoying the conversation. You guys are right. Larger businesses who have alternative sources of funding should be aware that they may be eliminating the ability for a smaller business owner to receive a grant or a loan. We also don't have enough tests, which could show a larger number of those affected with the virus. That is a lot of truth to that, Lisa. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Javier, although some people are disagreeing with us here. It's such a fine line of managing the future and health of mankind, but not at the detriment of the future and health of mankind. Does that make
exactly?
Throw it to you on that. What do you think?
Exactly. And I'm so glad that Lisa actually popped into. I sit with Lisa on the Community Investment Collaborative Board, and that's one of the key, in talking about access to capital, one of the key elements here is what CIC does in terms of now their business recovery fund, which that's another one. Definitely, please, if you are a very small business, if you know Latinos, May 8th is when that application closes, and it's a loan 1% so it's not a forgivable one, but 6 months. You don't have to begin any interest payments. So really, to try to help people reopen, CICville.org. It's a great way, and the staff there that's one of the things that's so important, the staff at CIC and what they do, because even if you're not eligible for that particular loan, they speak Spanish. They're connected with the Small Business Development Center. They're the new host for that. So the staff there will be able to direct you in the right where you need to go. If it's not here, then maybe it's this grant. If it's not this loan, maybe it's this one. So just resources like that are key. But just on the subject of what you were saying, it's one of the things that frustrates me is we seem to have reached a point where we know people aren't content to disagree while assuming everyone wants the same outcome. Like, everyone here wants the same outcome, which is to minimize loss of life, right, and loss of standard of living. And we're all trying to figure out different ways to do that, and we're all impacted by our experiences. You know, someone who has lost a loved one to this virus, or who's in the medical community, is on the front lines, is probably going to say, well, given everything I've been through, we got to be really, really cautious in reopening. Someone like myself, who is seeing businesses, very small businesses that I care about, be destroyed and be at risk of losing generational wealth that they could pass on to their kids, is looking at it from a different perspective, saying there will be loss of life that will follow this if these businesses get wiped out entirely. So the balance is hard. I just think the important thing is to sort of be kind to one another and recognize where each of us are coming from, and not assume that the other person just cares about money, or that they don't care about lives that are being affected by this. We're all trying to get to this together and come on the other side of this where we don't have a massive generational poverty issue, because we've wiped out the wealth of Latino and minority business owners who couldn't access capital, and therefore and already did not have housing residential wealth to pass on to their kids, and now we've wiped out their businesses also.
Oh my gosh, Judah, did you hear that? That was one of he's just giving me the thumbs up, the double thumbs up over here. That was one of the smartest things I have heard on this network in 2 years on this program. I agree 1,000% with what you literally just said right there. You just blew me away. I take this for granted. I'm able to do my job through an ISP and this. Sounds like you guys are able to do your job through an ISP and through this. We are so fortunate and lucky to be able to earn money in this time by working. And people are taking for granted working from home on the internet signal to work. Put in perspective with the Latino community of how this may not be the case.
I just think of so many of the businesses, restaurants, caterers. Because even if you're doing takeout delivery, some people that they go straight to, you can do takeout delivery. We've talked to at least one restaurateur caterer, and he says, I can't take a chance. I'm already underwater in rent. I can't be taking a chance on buying food that I therefore don't sell and have to throw out. So it's not so easy to just like transform and do takeout and delivery. Some people
can't pivot. They can't pivot.
Exactly.
Right.
They can't take that chance because their life savings are in this business. I think of house cleaners. Even some landscapers have been affected. They can't people don't want to, work with them if they're not sure that they're under an order to close their business. And so the key with these is if they can't be allowed to operate and they're forced to close for too long, that's it. There's not a lot of leeway in these businesses. And one of the things we see a lot, working with balance sheets, working with P&L, is sometimes you look at a business and say, oh man, their revenues are great. You should be able to survive for 6 months. And it's like, if you're a cleaning business, you're retail, buy and sell, your revenues may look great, but guess what also looks great? Your cost of goods sold is very high. So that profit margin is extremely slim. And sometimes you can't make it 3 months. Especially if you're a very small business, one of the number one issues that people will bring up to me for Adelante, whether I'm with CIC, whether it's as clients, is, as a very small business, sometimes even if they have a mismatch in cash flows, it can be devastating. If they do a job for a client, they've paid all up front, all the materials they need, they do the job, and their client delays 30 days paying them, their business gets crunched in those 30 days because now they can't service the next client. So now we're talking about a business like that if the cash flows misalign, they're already in trouble. And we're saying now you're going to have no cash flows for the next 3 months or the next 2 months. So it's one of those things where each additional day, we're trying to find the balance, right? But it's not so much a question of, I often hear like better to overreact than underreact. And I said, but the issue with, that's fine. I understand the mentality. You'll take these chances. But the issue is sometimes that extra day in which you overreacted, that's the day he went bankrupt.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. What are you thinking, Javier?
What I was going to say also is, the internet and what we do works very well when you're in a service economy, right? But when you're not in the service economy, it really doesn't matter, right? I mean, when you have to go out of your house and do the job that you have to do, staying at home doesn't help you, right? And that's the issue. If you look at small businesses, most of them, right, they have to get out. They have little stores. They have to get out and work. They can't do most of their work from home. And even when you do, I mean, our business, although we can do it through the phone, it's a big difference between me going out and meeting people, me going out and marketing. There's conferences that were supposed to occur that aren't occurring. So all that is a challenge because it's a lost time period that you don't have, and small businesses get affected by that.
You have a restaurant on Pantops that asked that I did not use their name, which you guys know that have said, this is exactly us. We want to open for takeout, but we can't and don't really know how. Fernando Garay, Barber of the Stars, he says, House of Cuts is on a thin line as well. We have not received any assistance, any funding from anywhere. We were denied unemployment. We received no money from the federal government. Fernando Garay runs a phenomenal barbershop on the UVA corner that I encourage everyone watching to support and patronize. Anywhere you guys want to go. Final word for both you guys with a lot of people watching. Anywhere you want to go.
So I'd emphasize two things. One, also take advantage of, so it's not idle is closed. The economic injury disaster loan is done for the time being. PPP is back open. Push hard on that. Virginia 30-day fund, if it works for you, do it. CIC, you really don't have anything to lose by giving them a call as a small business owner. CVilleshops.com, the city has done an excellent job there giving you an opportunity to have people buy gift cards. You can register as a vendor there. People can purchase gift cards, because that's going to be a key for a lot of businesses, because you think of a service business like mine, or like ours. Sometimes our services can shift over time. So if someone doesn't get financial planning in the next 2 months, they'll probably still need financial planning 2 months from now.
Yeah.
And that we can make up those revenues. If someone doesn't go out to eat in a restaurant today, you can't get that back.
Right.
That day does not return. Those revenues do not return. So just keep in mind, even for all your listeners, if you know small business owners, think of ways in which you can patronize them, even if you can't be there physically. Ask them, do you have a gift card? Do you have some way that I can give you revenues now for a service that I will use in the future? Because sometimes it's just a matter of us thinking of new ways to help in this time, and really to put the pressure on the institutions that are giving out grants, loans, and really say, are you doing the job? I mean, just look at the second round of PPP. We went from having almost no requirements, very broad, like you said, public companies getting it, to now all of a sudden very strict requirements, audits of anyone getting over a certain amount. You have them basically saying, be careful. If you certify that you are significantly impacted by COVID, you better be.
Yeah, the Secretary of the Treasury basically went on record and said, we're going to prosecute to you the fullest extent of the law if you get this money and it's not for you.
Exactly. Right. And that's the result of people. The
Los Angeles Lakers getting the money.
Just taking.
Mm-hmm. How about this question for Javier and we close? Javier, do you mind if I ask your age?
No, of course not.
What's your age?
I'm 64 years
64 years old. You're a successful businessman here. And 64 years of being a businessman and helping folks around your life. How do you characterize COVID-19 and this pandemic and where we're at?
Well, without any doubt, this is the worst I've ever seen from a perspective of economic. I mean, I've gone through many, many recessions, including in 2008, 2009. But as you said, I mean, that was even though it was a recession, there was a lot of people that still worked, right? And it was a recession that was created from a different perspective. That is, that it was more of a real estate leverage type of recession. But this is where the government basically told everybody, you got to stop working. We're shutting down, right? The issue I may have is that it wasn't a total shutdown. There's a lot of companies out there that are open, the big ones, and everybody's going there and shopping, and the little guys on the side and saying, why can't I sell my product, right? So I recognize that, this was a medical emergency, and so we've never seen this before, and we've never done this before, and it's a global pandemic. It didn't just happen in the U.S. But the one thing I want to say is, I was Cuban born. My parents came here and created a life for my whole family, and if there's a place where you can succeed, it's America. And America has the way to find solutions to everything. And if you look at now, I mean, it is America that is leading in finding solutions to this virus. Right? We even hear Gilead is getting close to maybe coming up with a solution for this, including Pfizer. So there's so many companies out there working hard to come up with a solution, and this happens in America. And you have to keep the faith. I mean, faith, family, and then basically, keep working hard.
You got to believe in the spirit, right? We're going to do this.
Oh,
it's going to be different, but through hardship comes incredible innovation, and it tests the spirit of Americans everywhere. And I think we're going to come out of here stronger than ever.
I agree.
Exactly. Jerry, can I jump in with one more resource that just popped in my head? I want people to think about. Minority Business Alliance, formerly Chamber of Business Diversity Council. There's going to be, if you are a member of that, please look into it, reach out to that. There's going to be a couple of grant opportunities from there too, again, specifically targeted for minority business owners, very small, that are struggling. So keep your eyes peeled on that, especially if you're a member of that.
You got a number of folks from the CIC that are saluting you guys for a job well done on this interview. Lisa, she says, great job, Alex, absolutely fantastic. I thought it was phenomenal. Can we welcome you guys on, both you guys, on a regular on the show?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Sure. I would love it. You guys are great. Your beard is looking good, Alex. It's looking really good.
Doesn't match the picture that doesn't.
Yeah, it's looking good, man. It looks like well maintained. You did it right before the show. You're looking sharp. All right, you guys have a good one. You have a good day.
You too.
Javier, good to meet you. All right,
Same
take
here.
care, buddy. Take care.
too. Bye-bye.
Great job from Javier and Alex. I really liked Javier's perspective and answers there. A couple things I want to get out, and then we're going to recap headlines for those that are watching the show really quickly. Watch out for pork. Watch out for pork. And you're like, Jerry, what the hell are you talking about? What do you mean watch out for pork? Watch out for pork. The supply chain of pork across the country is being impacted as plants are being asked to shut down or are producing meat in a regular or limited basis. As a result, the prediction is pork products like bacon, the price point's going to skyrocket, and the supply and the opportunity to purchase bacon from grocery shelves across the country is going to be diminished. Watch out for pork. When people mess with your bacon, and I'm talking about the bacon you eat. When people mess with your bacon, at least my bacon, I get a little irked. Watch out for pork in this COVID landscape. All right, quickly, we will finish with headlines. We'll run them quickly. The $85 million headline, Judah, on screen has got a lot of people's attention. University of Virginia Hospital, $85 million a month in the red. Worth repeating, $85 million a month in the red, losing $3 million a day in this COVID-19 ecosystem. Watch it closely. The machine, which is the University of Virginia, that runs Charlottesville. Oftentimes, I say it's not the city of Charlottesville. It's the city of UVA. And the machine that is the University of Virginia is showing some true chinks in the armor and some potential blemishes and wear and tear. You have students potentially not returning for grounds. You have a virtual learning environment that could be the new norm as opposed to an in-person learning environment in Charlottesville at Thomas Jefferson's University. And now you have one of its extensions, one of the extensions of the machine, one of the arms of the machine, the hospital, saying it's losing $80 million a month. The University of Virginia may have billions with a B, billions plural with a B, in an endowment, but a lot of its extensions are showing like it's leaking a lot of oil. That machine's in peril. Next headline, my friend, quickly, and we're going to close this down in 3 minutes, is one that I got excited for and one I know Judah got excited for, with Virginia Commonwealth University and its president saying he's committed to returning students to grounds to campus in Richmond, Virginia. A repeat, VCU's president goes on record and says, students, I'm committed to returning them to grounds in the fall. There's hope there and potentially a pressure or domino effect for other school presidents across the Commonwealth. Drive-in movie theaters open in Virginia on May 1st. You're looking for something to do for your family? Get in your car, go to a drive-in movie theater and watch a movie. You can do it safely on May 1 and not break the law. It's something to do. If your house is anything like my house, you got to keep the Bambinos occupied. What's going to happen to the rental market in Charlottesville, Virginia if students don't return for the fall and potentially for the spring semesters? What's going to happen to all the housing stock that was allocated to University of Virginia students, 20 to 25,000 students in Charlottesville, Virginia, and these homes owned by corporations owned across Charlottesville and Central Virginia, these apartments and these homes, what's going to happen to them? If they're added back to Charlottesville's ecosystem and its economy, will the extra supply impact the affordable housing crisis in our community? Extra supply drives pricing down. Follow that story closely. Did UVA, next headline, mistakenly include racist elements in its new branding? We were on Monday pissed off about the new UVA logo and brand identity that shows Caveman with his head bowing down in fear and uncertainty as opposed to his head high with confidence, swagger, and panache. The Cavalier Daily released a story today about the brand identity, and no, it was not talking about Caveman's bowed head. It was talking about the, what's the word, serpentine walls, Judah? Serpentine. Thank you. Serpentine walls that are in the brand identity and how they literally, according to the Cavalier Daily, these serpentine walls were on grounds at UVA to hide slaves that were working the grounds at the university. So now you have two portions of the University of Virginia fan base pissed off about the new logo. One of them upset that Caveman's head is bowing down in fear, and the other one upset that walls from the grounds were included into the brand identity because they have racist undertones to it. Nike and UVA designed this logo in conjunction together. They did no research, obviously, and no market testing, because I think feedback would have been very quickly, don't include these walls, and why is Caveman bowing its head? Next headline, Daily Progress. What is its future? The new owners of the Daily Progress, Lee Enterprises, are asking the reporters, the writers, and the union of the Daily Progress, the Blue Ridge News Guild, to take a 2-week unpaid furlough. You have very limited writers to begin with, and you're asking them to take 2-week unpaid furloughs in the midst of a pandemic that's impacting schools, police, fire, rescue, small business, local government, testing all these like they've never been tested before, and here an out-of-state conglomerate financed by Warren Buffett is asking the reporters who document the history of the community to go on the disabled list for 2 weeks without pay. The only people that suffer are us. It's unfortunate. Pending home sales in March nationwide down 21%. Oh my, oh my, oh my. 21% nationwide home sales are down. This is a time for you to buy a house. I'm going to say it again. Documents can be done virtually. I did it myself with the purchase of our home on March 28th. This is the time to buy a house. It is a buyer's market. You can start to build generational wealth with the purchase of the home and by saving 15% on the front end of the purchase. Buy a home now. Buy a home now. Buy a home now. And the last headline that intrigued me, Hair Cuttery says hasta luego to its company and files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Even worse, $3 million it owed Hair Cuttery to its employees for the week before it closed to the pandemic. It has not paid its employees $3 million. What? The H-E double hockey sticks, Hair Cuttery. You put your employees on the front line the week before you close, and you don't pay them for their work and their service. That ain't right. Follow this story, Hair Cuttery. What is it going to do to the Federal Realties of the world? Federal Realty owns Barracks Road Shopping Center. It's a publicly traded company. Federal Realty has Hair Cuttery as a tenant and Barracks Road Shopping Center. If this brand is filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which it has, what's going to happen to all its spaces in the Federal Realty Barracks Road Shopping Centers of the world? They're going to be vacant. Watch it closely. I'm Jerry Miller. It's the I Love CVille show on the I Love CVille network. Enjoy your afternoon.